want you to explain this. This is from the fiat standard, page like 66. It goes on for 2 or 3 pages, these passages. It says the problem with fiat is that simply maintaining the wealth you already own requires active management and expert decision-making. You need to develop expertise in portfolio allocation, risk management, stock and bond valuation, real estate market, credit markets. Then a few paragraphs later, you say the correct and successful financial strategy under the fiat standard is to constantly take on as much debt as possible. Be meticulous about making all payments on time and use the debt to buy hard assets and generate future events. 2 more sentences. Under a fiat standard, users are incentivized to accumulate hard cash flowing assets instead of accumulating more fiat, which continuously loses value. The path to financial success under the fiat standard lies in acquiring hard assets. Can you just kind of walk someone listening through this who's not quite there yet, for someone who's still in the mindset that debt is bad in a fiat world? Why are you talking that the path to success is actually taking on more debt?
Because I think, so what I do in the fiat standard is that I analyze the way that the fiat system works in the same way that I did it with Bitcoin and the Bitcoin standard. And I try to lay out the mechanics of how it works and therefore the implications and the economic implications of the way that Bitcoin is run or the way that fiat is run. When I do that, you realize that the way that fiat mines new tokens, the way that new fiat tokens come into existence is through the process of credit generation. So whereas in Bitcoin, you have the proof of work solution, in gold, you have to mine, you have to dig under earth to get gold nuggets out and then process them and turn them into solid gold. With fiat, the way new fiat money comes into existence is through lending. Anytime a bank creates a new loan, it's making new money. Anytime a central bank issues more credit, it's making more money. So that's how the money supply increases. That's where the money supply comes from. In that sense, you'll understand why everybody in the fiat system needs to get into debt, because there's no difficulty adjustment. There's no limit on how much debt can be created. There's no hard limit. It's not like with Bitcoin, where we have a fixed number of Bitcoin tokens that need to be created. And so every time you create more debt, if you manage to create more debt, you are making more money. And so you're allowing the bank that is issuing you the loan to make more money, to literally create new supply of money. And so therefore, that's profitable for them. So they can cut you in on that deal, and that would allow you to benefit from it. So it's really the only way to beat inflation, because in this situation, everybody's taking out debt. So if you hold on to fiat money, if you put money in a savings account, you are being the sucker in the game. You are the one who's losing purchasing power because the fiat creation is devaluing the money that you have. On the other hand, if you have your liabilities denominated in fiat money, that's how you can win in the system. So if you're in debt, then you are witnessing your debt decline in value over time, and that's protecting you to an extent from inflation. And so that's what it really comes down to, in my opinion. It just makes a lot of sense to get into debt in the fiat system. That's how it works. And that's why individuals, corporations, governments, everybody is up to their eyeballs in debt in the fiat system.
Okay, so if it's valuable for these guys, and I'm just playing devil's advocate with you here a little bit, why in large parts of the Western world now are interest rates just going through the roof? Because that's obviously going to prevent people from going into debt. So what's the play here by the central banking system?
Well, so the way that they see it is they look at the world through something they call the Phillips curve. And according to the Phillips curve, there is a trade-off between inflation and unemployment. The whole thing, this is really the premise that Keynes gave to economics, which is a load of nonsense. And it says that it's the amount of spending in the economy is what determines the state of the economy. And so when there's a lot of spending, then that leads to more economic activity. It leads to more employment. It leads to inflation potentially. When there's too little spending, then you don't get enough employment, so you have unemployment, but you have a decline in prices. So in their mind, there's always this trade-off where either you have high unemployment or you have high inflation. You can't have both be low and you can't have both be high. It's like a seesaw. That's the entire Keynesian frameworks, because according to Keynes, it's all determined by the level of aggregate spending. If your aggregate spending is too high, then you have inflation and no unemployment. If your aggregate spending is too low, then you have unemployment but low inflation. That's how they look at the world working. And so in their mind, The way to fix an inflation problem is to basically put people out of work. That's the genius way in which they do it. They're always obviously tempted to reduce interest rates, and because reducing interest rates means creating more money, and creating money is highly popular politically because everybody wants free money. And so if you promise people to print money to give it to them, the majority of them are going to want to be beneficiaries of it. The majority of them are going to think that they're beneficiaries of it. But realistically, the vast majority are victims of it. It has still always got large contingencies. There are always people that want to print money. And so they lower the interest rates in order to accommodate the desire for people to borrow more, to have access to more credit and more money. But then when inflation hits, they also don't want inflation to be very bad because politics of inflation are also not very popular. So then how do you fix the inflation? You fix the inflation by reducing the level of aggregate expenditure. And you can do that through raising interest rates. Another way you can do that is by reducing government spending, obviously, but understandably, these people don't mention that one. So there is an easier way of doing it, which is, make you poor, basically. And so they raise interest rates, and then that ruins a lot of people's businesses, puts a lot of people out of business, puts a lot of people out of work. And that then translates to lower levels of aggregate expenditure. And that then leads to the reduction of inflation.